Okay, today we're going to be finding a percent of a number mentally. When you're in a store and you need to make a quick calculation, you often don't have a calculator on hand. And just the amount of time it would take you to bring up that application on your phone, it would be faster if you just had some basic skills down. And one of those would be, everybody should be able to find 50% of a number. Because 50% simply means half. So if I had a 50% discount, then what I could expect to pay is half of that amount. A 10% discount. Well, 10% just simply means to move the decimal place. It's 1/10, so I'm dividing by 10. Move the decimal place once to the left. Move decimal once left. And that'll tell you your 10% discount. And then I think of 1% as moving it, that 1% would be 1 out of 100, so that would be moving it twice. So 1%, that's 1 out of 100. That's moving it twice to the left. Move twice left. And then the other one I think of is the 5%. Well, for the 5%, I figure my 10%, and then I cut it in half. So figure 10%, and then cut in half. So these are just basic skills that you should have just for everyday life. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. First of all, I want to know what 60%, I did this all wrong. I want to know what 60% of 480 is. Well, first of all, I can think of 60% as being 50% plus 10 more percent off. So 50% of 480 is the same thing as dividing it by 2. So 50% would be 240. Well, I need another 10% taken off. So I need to figure out what 10% of 480 is. Remember I said 10% is like dividing it by 10, which means it's just simply moving the decimal place once to the left. That means 10% is another 48. Well, when I add these two together, I get 288. I'm telling you that 60% of 480 is 288. And this is accurate because you figure 50% was 240, which means 60% had to be more than 240. I'm at 288. So let's try another one. Okay, what's 5% of 400? Well, I don't have 5% memorized, but I know 10% is like dividing by 10. That means that's just simply moving the decimal place once to the left. So 10% is 40. 5% is half of 10%. That means 5% is going to be equal to 20 in this case. Okay, let's try another one. How about 70% of 600? So I know that 50% of 600 is 300. 50% is 300. And I know that 10% is like dividing by 10. And so that's moving the decimal place once. So 10% is 60. Another 10% would be 20%, which is what I need. So I could double that. That would be 120. 50 and 20% would be the 70%. So if I add these numbers together, that's going to give me 420. 70% is equal to 420 out of 600. Okay, this is one that you really need to know. And when you go out to eat, you're supposed to leave a tip. The tip is 15%. And so if your bill was $42, you would need to leave 15% of $42 for your waitress. Well, 15%. We could look at this as 10%. Remember that 10% is just simply moving the decimal place once to the right, or to the left. So 10% would be $4. And I need 5% more to make my 15. That's half of the 10%. So that would be another $2. That means I should leave, if I want to leave a 15% tip, I should leave $6 for the waitress.